This is Anthony with Selling Heroes, and we're here with Arvell Jones, a pioneering artist in
Definitely.
Pioneering, yes, you can say that.
Yeah.
Yes,
One of the first black artists to work regularly at the Big Two.
The first black artist to have to work on the mainstream comics at Marvel and at DC.
So you said Billy Graham was there first, and
Yep.
they had put him on Black Panther.
And Luke Cage.
And Luke Cage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this is following up on the popularity of what we call blaxploitation movies, and the blossoming, burgeoning black market for entertainment in
for
America.
entertainment. Yes, that's exactly it.
We're a few years past the civil rights era, even though the fight went on, the struggle went on, let's say.
Right.
But this was entertainment being made for a black audience. Yes. I mean,
primarily, yes.
Primarily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is the emergence of these black characters that Marvel was launching, and then DC kind of followed suit, right?
Yeah, DC kind of followed up with Tony Isabella's Black Lightning.
Black Lightning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We just spoke to him. He's a great story about that.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, myself and Tony created the character Misty Knight.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now she's being used in Luke Cage, right?
Right. In the Netflix series.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that got canceled, but she was a cool character.
Right.
She was the police officer, yes?
Yes, she was. And she became, I think in the third season, she actually became like a captain. It's the second season of Iron Fist, which was also a title I worked on. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, it's funny that Iron Fist. Well, I mean, it was very popular with Asian guys. He was a kung fu character, again, kind of popularizing on that kung fu genre that was popular in movies.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee, so that was. But he in the show, he's that air guy, and for the big corporation, right?
Right.
Was that how he was?
In the comics
beginning?
as well. Yeah. It was created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane.
Okay.
And they envisioned a young, vibrant white guy.
White guy. That knew kung fu.
Yeah.
Got the power up.
Yeah, and got to be the best in the. As me and Larry Hama used to talk about all the time, it was the Tarzan syndrome back then, where with Tarzan, he was the king of the jungle. Yeah, for the most part.
And he was the only white guy there.
Right. Right.
So that's what you mean by the Tarzan syndrome.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So that kind of happened with Iron Fist as well. So me and Larry used to talk about that because he was writing Tarzan and I was drawing Iron Fist, and I came up to him and said, "You're doing Tarzan." He says, "You got a lot of nerve. You're doing Iron Fist."
Okay. And Larry's Filipino, right?
I think if he's not Filipino, I thought he was always Korean, but maybe he is Filipino.
We'd have to ask him. He's kind of a. But he was he born in America? Do you remember?
As far as I know, I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's a very nice guy. He was instrumental in popularizing and designing so many G.I. Joe characters. That's what he's really known for.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Hama and his artwork.
Right.
Well, I always find it interesting in a way that there is kind of the folklore of how Martin Goodman and Stan Lee, and they had these two guys working for him that were, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon.
Yes.
And it was almost like back in the day, a gentleman's agreement type thing, where DC was the corporate, waspy, white structure, and the Jewish guys had to just make their own company.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And but then, when it happened. The integration of black artists and such, it happened with those guys. They wanted to start guys like yourself and Billy Graham and Ron Wilson and
Keith Pollard.
Pollard, And who was that other guy you mentioned earlier?
Billy Keith. And it was Trevor Von Eden as well.
Oh yeah, Trevor. A little later.
Yeah. Not that far later. We all kind of came around at the same time.
Okay.
Those are all the black artists, but of course we had a rich history or I should say, I had a rich history with in Detroit with a bunch of artists, including Rich Buckler, Jim Starlin, Al Milgram. They're all from Detroit.
Cool.
Mike Vosburgh, Terry
Wow.
Austin, Mike Nasser.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're all
I didn't
from
either.
Detroit. Tom Orzechowski. I've known these guys since me and Tony were just talking a minute ago. We've known each other for 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all started as fans in the business for the most part.
So yeah, Tony said he was doing a little fan club where he didn't see. There were guys from the other side of town that came in. And that's how he was very open to creating a black character, and ended up becoming Black Lightning. So that was really cool.
And that's kind of what we did in Detroit. Rich Buckler was one of the organizers and founders of the Detroit Triple Fanfare. I became a committee member. So did Tom Orzechowski, Greg Theakston. I mean, there were so many of us. It was crazy. Like I said, about 15 of us. And,
that's so cool.
Yeah, and then we ran into Tony at our shows, and we all got together and
made a kind of a little camp that moved to New York, and made a big footprint in comics.
Yeah, they said, what's in those Great Lakes waters, man?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, what do you consider your career highlight with the characters and your working comics?
Well, I guess it's split between my time with Tony developing the character Misty Knight, which became a regular, long-lasting character in the Marvel universe, and my time working with the Milestone guys on their projects, as well as I had a long run on All-Star Squadron where I got to draw practically all of the old characters from the 40s. And,
Power Girl and Starman and all those guys.
Yeah, me and Roy actually did the origin of Starman. Roy called me up one day and said, Roy Thomas called me up one day and said, Starman doesn't have an origin. I said, what?
Wow.
He said, let's fix that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, we had a bunch of fun. Yeah.
I love Roy. I've known him for a long time. I've always gotten along well with him.
Yeah.
I was sending him copies of every piece of art that went through my hand, so he had it, like library, and archived. I mean.
Yeah.
And until so much stuff, I couldn't keep up with it. But Roy's a great guy, and I really appreciate. You worked with him. He was your editor, or?
Yeah, he was editor, and we also, when I first started at Marvel, he was the editor at Marvel, and before that, we had a fanzine, and we would call Roy up for leaks. So he would tell us what was ready to happen at Marvel.
Other than Alter Ego?
Yeah,
he started.
He wasn't at Alter Ego. He was editing our assistant editor to Stan at the time.
Right.
And he was just, I called him up and said, Roy, what's going on? He was my source.
Okay.
Back then.
But didn't he start Alter Ego?
Yeah, him and Professor Jerry Bales, another gentleman
Mr. Bales.
from Detroit.
Yeah. Yes, because I've gotten a lot of artwork through the years that had, property of Jerry Bales or whatever. He was one of the Actually, Roy, as far as I know the story, Roy started out kind of like his Jerry Bales was his mentor.
Yes.
In fandom, like Jerry Bales helped create comic fandom in that area and helped legitimize it, make it a collecting a source and all. There's there's a big story to Jerry Bales that that hasn't been told.
Right.
That people don't know about.
He really
Jerry
was very instrumental
invented
back
comic
then.
fandom.
Right, and he was also one of the founders of the Detroit Triple Fanfare, which was the nation's first real comic book convention.
There you go.
And Shel Dwarf, who was also one of the founders, went out and helped found the San Diego Comic Con.
Shel Dwarf was from Detroit too?
Yes.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah, we kind of took over the comics industry quietly, after the big Jewish rush thing and everything.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
No, but I just like, how, things got structured and progressed and evolved. I like that. I don't mean to, harp on the color aspect, but it was, things happened for a reason, and back when they happened. When
Oh,
they
yeah.
happened when they were ready to happen.
Right.
You know,
There was-
and there's a story behind it, and
Right.
you're living proof of it. And
Yeah.
No,
And-
you know, a milestone. I appreciate that because there was a few guys that I know that work. Which characters did you work on?
I worked on Hardware,
Hardware, yeah.
the Blood Syndicate,
Yeah.
and Cobalt.
Okay.
Yeah, those
Hardware
were-
was kind of the lead title, yes?
Yeah, it was one of the lead titles. You know, the very first batch of books, the very first 4 books with Static, Icon, Hardware, and the Blood Syndicate. You know, one of the founders, Dennis Cowan.
Yeah, Danny Cowan, yeah.
Yeah, he was my assistant.
Oh, okay.
When I first started working at DC Comics, he knocked on my door. He was 14 years old.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And he said, "I want to get in this field. You're in this field. I want to get in. How do I do it? I'll do anything. I'll sweep the floors. I'll get coffee." My roommate was Keith Fowler. He said, "Coffee?" I said, "Yeah, it's in the kitchen on the left-hand side on the counter." And
Now-
he walked right in and started working.
And Mr. Cowan has gone on to have quite a considerable career in animation.
Oh, yeah,
Went down
definitely.
to Atlanta with that studio.
Yes,
I know that.
yes. He was became a senior vice president at BET.
Right.
Yeah, in the production department. Yeah. Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're at the show. You enjoying it?
Yeah, it's the first time back in New York since the first and second New York Comic Con.
Wow.
Yeah. Mhm.
So where do you live now? You went
I'm back
to,
in Detroit.
Back in Detroit.
Yeah, I met a
There's
beautiful
something in the
woman.
water up there now, but you don't want it, right?
I won't get into that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, you look great. And,
Yeah.
your work works really cool. I hope you're
Yeah.
selling a lot of your recreations.
Your work is
commissions.
amazing.
Right.
And
Well-
this is Anthony Snyder with Arvell Jones and Sharon Snyder for Selling Heroes.
Yeah.